Well, folks, season 2 is here. Been waiting a very long time. I mean, like, we're talking between, the whole year of 2020 with everything that happened then. And then, a studio change from White Fox to Lead In and everything else building up to that. And let me tell you, first episode, what did it teach me? It taught me that White Fox is definitely still one of my favorite studios no matter what happens, because dang, not to discredit these artists because they still did a fantastic job, and this is just personal bias and opinion, but I'm really not digging the new art style. I know it's supposedly closer to the manga art style and everything, but the way White Fox is doing it, even with that CGI armor and just the different shading and the way they designed them, I much prefer White Fox. However, it's definitely not going to deteriorate from the story, and that has nothing to do with what's happening in this episode. So before I really get into that kind of crap, let's talk about today's episode. So we start off, and it's pretty much just a recap of the very first episode of season 1, and it's pretty much just in the art style of Lead In instead of White Fox, and obviously the red is brightened up and shown to emphasize the blood, and it looks really actually pretty good in those cuts, but nothing super superior, out of this world or anything. And then we get to the intro and into the actual episode. We start off with a nice, I don't know if it's just to kind of show off what he's going to look like without the CG or what the heck, but it's Goblinslayer just chilling in this field, and we get a 360 panoramic view. And then we get to the guild hall where you've got Archer and Priestess just chilling there, and they're talking, pretty much about the fact that she's about to go up in level, and she's just really excited about it. And it's also coincidentally a new year, a new season, and that they're going to be introducing a lot of new adventures, into the guild. So while that's happening and everything, we've got these little boys over here pretty much trying to hype themselves up to flirt or even become friends with Priestess and Archer. But of course, Archer's an elf, so she can hear everything with her ears, and she likes to make that comment about the fact that people think they can keep secrets around her, but they can't. And this is right after the events of Goblin's Crown, because they just pretty much do a 10-second little quickie on what's happening to Fencer, and the fact that she wanted to become a support now rather than an adventurer, which is kind of cool, that they actually, even though if it's only 10-second little thing where they fill that in so that it was canon, which obviously it was, but I digress. And right after that we go and you see a bunch of adventurers leaving, going on their first quests and everything, hunting goblins. And Priestess thinks about the one group that left before with her, and they all died. So pretty much learning something or not, it is what it is. Go with the tides, and whatever happens. And they're still sitting around there just chilling, and here comes Mr. Dwarf himself, and he's over there harassing Archer because she's an elf. And he does make a nice one, pretty much freaking talking about how she's an anvil because of her ear shape, obviously. we get to see pretty much just I'm pretty sure that I know that's probably part of the story, but it almost seems like a not introduction, but a runway of all their recurring characters. We get to see I didn't think of the names in this show, Majo and Yarisuke. Good lord. Yarisuke, and a couple other ones that we have seen reoccurring in the past, that helped him out on the goblin farm and everything. Higher level adventures, platinums if I remember correctly. So right after that, Lizard Boy comes and joins the party, and he's talking about he loves warm weather. Summer's coming, obviously, because he's a lizard, cold cold weather, you know. And they're talking about how they're waiting for Goblin Slayer. Well, Goblin Slayer finally shows up, and, you know, everybody in the guild hall that's kind of new is kind of just judging him, like, you know, what the heck is a Goblin Slayer? What kind of nickname is that, you know? But he joins the group, and, you know, of course, he's like, you know, asking what they're going to do to this day, but what do you expect? We're hunting goblins. And, you know, he kind of asks if they're going to come with him, and of course, you know, they say, you know, as long as something's getting done, they'll join him in anything. So, right after that, we get Elf, or Archer, picking up on all the juicy gossip of everything that's going on in the guild hall, because, well, elf ears again. But, you know, they're all talking crap about Goblin Slayer, and they kind of, like, censor some of it out, so I'm assuming you have to kind of guess and fill in the blanks of what they're saying, or they just don't want to say it either, or. But, you know, Priestess asks what they're gossiping about him, and, you know, she's like saying, you know, you're better off not knowing, don't even freaking worry about it, it's just a bunch of bull crap. But while they're all, you know, worrying about that, Goblin Slayer's going up to the guild counter to go see what goblin quest we have for today. And surprisingly, Counter Girl, or if I remember correctly, I think her name was Jo, one of the two, either way works for me, you know. It's one of those shows where they kind of just have their roles, and then that's the name they give them. So half the time, that's pretty much just the name I'm giving them, unless it's really directed, you know. So they get to there, and Goblin Slayer gets like a literal stack. Like, it looks like at least 20 or 30 of them, but, you know, we're never really gonna find out how many it is. But he gets them all, and he's like, that's a lot of quests, you know. And she's like, well, it is springtime, and, you know, fair, because obviously the nicer weather, they're probably coming out and doing their thing. And, you know, so what all these quests and everything, he realizes that he should probably buy some potions. So he buys heal, antidote, stamina, and 6 of each, which kind of makes sense because there's, you know, 5 of them in the party. And Goblin Slayer probably takes his fair share. And he gets back to, you know, kind of divvy him out a little bit. And we get to learn some, like, little tips of the trade from him. And he's, like, tying little rope knots around some of the potions so he doesn't mix up which ones are which. Obviously, because, you know, they've got the little symbols on the front of the bottles, as you can see. But, however, if you got, like, the different types of knots on the different types of bottles, it's one little thing less to worry about. And one of the newer adventurers in the guild's asking what's going on, what they're doing, and Lizard Man explains to her, you know, how they're marking them, and she kind of takes that to head note. However, Goblin Slayer does add some useful advice to limit it to things, you know, that you know are something that you should probably do that in a hurry with, because, you know, you don't want to get too many things like that, or else you get them all confused. So, right when that happens, he gives her some really quick, fair advice that, you know, to be careful around goblins and start killing rats, because he doesn't want to see, you know, new adventurers get hurt, understandably so. You know, he's not a cruel person or anything. He wants these people to learn before they tackle on bigger things. And, you know, he double checks to make sure they all want to come with him, and the priestess is all like, you know, of course, you know, we want to come with you because we decided to. And, you know, even, like, Archer is like, you know, you don't care about the people gossiping about us. And of course she doesn't, you know. She was the first person to even join him in a party, period. So obviously she doesn't care. It's that heartfelt stuff. So they're all leaving to go on their quests, right? And we get this snooty, rude, red-headed glasses boy that runs right into Priestess. And, you know, saying that she's in his way, and frickin' being just an a-hole about it, the whole thing. And even the dwarf's getting all mad about it. And Elf Girl's like, well, that's a really old man comment to say. But, hey, to be fair, I would have been pissy too. So there's that. And even Lizard Man's like, you know, the rookies, the more rookies we get, we're gonna get more rotten apples. And he's totally right. So, right, we get to, like, after the quest, which is really kind of lame because we don't get to see any goblin slaying, like, at all this episode. That made me really sad. You get to see us in return, and we don't get to see any goblin slaying. BS. Wait, almost 4 years and don't get anything. Not happy about that. But Priestess is tired. Everybody's tired. So, you know, they split their ways. Lizard Man's gonna bring her to her place to stay. And even Archer just looks just dead, completely freaking dead. And Goblin Slayer goes into the guild hall to turn in his quest sheets and get, the money all divvied up and everything. But only the lights are on and nobody's there. Counter Girl's not there, Joel. So at first you see somebody on the bench and he assumes it's a goblin, so he pulls out his blade and gets the classic red eye streak. And right before he can even realize that that's that little freaking boy, stupid snot-nosed boy, the boy freaks out, and there's Joe at the counter freaking like, oh, it's Goblin Slayer. She was like totally sleeping on the bench there, like not the bench but her desk the whole time, and she tells him that she was asleep and did not tell anybody. But obviously they're pretty close, as we've seen through the first season of the movie, so it's not like a thing, but his I always forget when he speaks how just there's that it is, because she has details about the quests and how many they've killed, and he's just like, yeah, there were goblins there. And while he's doing that, the stupid little redhead wizard boy is taking down notes, and Goblin Slayer straight up says look, man, bad idea. It's like, you're taking these notes, Goblin gets a hold of your notes, we're screwed. They're gonna learn, they're smart. Obviously we learned in the past of the series that people don't think they are, but they learn and they adapt. So Goblin Slayer even gives this kid some advice, because the kid's being just a dick about everything, and he's like, if you can't do something until you're taught, nothing's gonna change even if you are taught. Just cutting this kid down to the ground. And he tells the kid, or not, he doesn't tell the kid, she tells Goblin Slayer, my bad, Joel does, that that little girl that he was worried about earlier, actually they did go for some rats and she got bitten up a little bit, but she's totally fine, which is awesome, because I think that I love just his consideration, even for being as brutish and gruesome as people think he is. He's just this kind-hearted man that just wants to kill goblins, So he asks about the wizard boy, and apparently he's new, he's a rookie, and he just wants to kill goblins on his own. Bad idea. Has nowhere to stay, looks at Joel, and she just goes upstairs, nah, I ain't got no room. So she gestures it, it's pretty great. But he tells the kid he can just follow him. The kid at first says no, and so Goblin Slayer's just walking out, and the boy realizes that this is probably his only chance, so he thanks her for the tea and he walks out and follows Goblin Slayer. And we get to the barn, the beloved barn with our beloved Musume, and she's just chilling there looking all nice and fancy, welcoming Goblin Slayer home. And of course you get a nice frontal zoom in on her booba, because what would it be without that? And she's, asking about Goblin Slayer if he's alright and everything, and how everything went. And, he asks if he can have this boy over because he's an adventurer and he has nowhere to stay tonight, but just for one night. And she says yes. And he's going back to the barn, or the house, by the barn, his crib. And the boy asks if that's his wife, and she says yeah, but he just clearly denies it straight up and down. And so they're negotiating this with the uncle or her dad, because, it's his barn, and he's kind of saying no at first, and the kid just starts getting uppity, and the uncle's like, this is why nobody likes you. Not exactly word for word, but that's what I think about it. And so even the uncle is like, are you gonna look after him? Are you gonna take responsibility if something happens? And he's like, of course, I'll even stay up all night and watch. But the uncle, finally accepts it for one night and says, look, you need to sleep, because if you don't sleep, you're useless. So get some sleep. So they get to the barn, and he makes the kid a bed and some hay, and the kid's questioning him because he's leaning against the barn, asking how he's gonna sleep. And Goblin Slayer tells him, he can sleep with one eye open, because that's how you have to be with goblins. You got to be alert at all times. And he tells the kid he should probably learn that. And the kid's freaking just being a narcissistic butt, and he's like, nah, I won't. And he's like, fine, whatever, I don't care. Goblin Slayer is intentionally giving him lessons on how to do things slowly but surely, but he's just taking him and brushing him off. So idiot, just a straight freaking idiot. But they go to sleep, and they get breakfast in the morning, and the kid eats too much, so he's all bloated and crap. And freaking Goblin Slayer tells him, he should kill some rats to gain experience, and the kid's just being a dick about this. And we find out that priestess didn't make it for her rank up, because they think that she hasn't contributed enough to the party, which we don't freaking know, because we didn't get to see any of the fighting. But Archer is, suggests that she should go with porcelain or obsidian ones, just to raise her rank and be more in charge of the group. And even Goblin Slayer says, that's not a bad idea, even though you've never, fought with anybody else, it's not a bad plan, then you can get your rank up. And, stupid wise ass wizard boy is, pretty much talking crap about her, about how she shakes in her boots and calls for God 'cause she's a little priest girl. And Lizard Man comes up and is like, look, if you're going to talk crap about others, then you can't complain if others are going to talk crap about you. And I love that line because out of nowhere, he's like, look, you're mocking one priestess, all the other priestesses are going to feel the same, especially with such a derogative term, not just necessarily aimed at the main priestess of the series, but every one of them. And you could just see like more reoccurring characters, obviously, and how they're just getting really mad about this, and the whole guild's getting mad. And so there's a little pissy fit teenage boy thing about saying how he's gonna go kill some goblins. And while he's doing that, we get oh, what is her name? I'm trying to think of it, but it's Yaritsukai's party member. I'm trying to think of her name. The white knight girl. I can't think of it. But either way, she's like, talking about how she's like heard the whole thing and he's apologizing for it. But like, he's like talking like, he's like talking crap even though she's like an extremely high ranked adventurer. And she's like, well, I got an idea. Why don't you try and slay some goblins and Priestess will be the leader and we'll see how this goes. And like Priestess is shook. He's shook, and that's the end of the episode. Overall, it was an okay episode. Nothing to write home about. Like I said, it's going to take me some time to adapt to this because White Fox, whether you hate him or love him, after the falling apart, with Studio Bind and Mashoko Tensei and everything great with that, we got to follow, a little bit. Like the last thing I think they did was Utawari Rumano, but I do know they have a 2-core continuous series starting in January. And then obviously we don't know if White Fox is doing Ray Zero Season 3 or not. I'm assuming they are though, but that's just speculation. I'm gonna miss that art, that animation style with a little CG, but wine ain't gonna get it back. It is what it is. However, I'm excited for next week to actually get some fucking action finally and see some goblin slaying, to see what that looks like with Lead-In Studios taking the helm. But with that all being said, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. It means a lot to me. And if you're feeling really generous, hit the subscribe button. Right now, I'm doing 4 series this season. Maybe 5, depending if something else really rises to me. I'm doing this series, obviously. Eminence in the Shadow, Frederian, and Regna Crimson at this point in time. Maybe do another one. We'll see. Hard to say. But yeah, with that out of the way, this has been Squids, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.